Welcome back to the I Am Passionate podcast. I hope you all are doing well. We've got another exciting week of NFL football just ahead. We've got, the Thursday night football game later tonight. We've got two games on Saturday, and, there's a lot of meaningful football to be played, and we're just going to dive right into it. Last week's prediction record, I was 12-4. Not a bad week, with wins coming from the Chicago Bears, the Baltimore Ravens, the Steelers, the Rams, the Jags, the Commanders, the Bills, the Chargers, the Texans, the Eagles, the 49ers, and Seattle. And my losses, the most shocking one being the Bucks, the Cowboys, the Packers, and the Panthers. And so kind of talking about what I thought were some of the better games of last week. I gotta throw that Bills and Patriots game up there, probably at the number one spot, simply just because the Patriots were leading that game 21-0 at one point, and Josh Allen, did Josh Allen-like things, help the Bills come from behind and get the win. Another game that I thought was really, really good would be the Rams versus Lions, which, that one, you all let me know your thoughts down below, because I feel like whenever those two teams match up, it's always a great game. And I didn't expect it to be 41-34 exactly, but I knew it was going to be a good game. I thought a little bit more defense was going to be played, believe it or not. In which, we did get some good defensive, I think it was Aiden Hutchinson who got that early interception on Matt Stafford. I think, but there was some nice defensive plays, but not as many. But I would just say those are the two. I like the other games, I don't know, but also let me know what you all think about the Chiefs. Basically, their season, they were eliminated last week, in their loss against the Chargers. And to make things a little worse, Patrick Mahomes is out for probably the whole next season with a torn ACL, in which, don't get me wrong, I don't want anyone to get injured. I'm more happy that the Chiefs lost more so than Patrick Mahomes getting hurt, because putting my own mentality into this, let's just say, actually, I can use the Ravens. I can say the Bills, because the Ravens and Bills come playoff time are the two teams that have been most affected by the Kansas City Chiefs. I just know if I was on either one of those teams, I would want to beat those two, like the Chiefs, at their best with Patrick Mahomes. That is how I would have wanted to see the Chiefs lose in the playoffs against, either the Ravens or the Bills. That's how I would have wanted to see them lose. But here's my question. The Bills are likely going to have, a playoff spot clinched for them. I feel like this is Josh Allen's year, where it's like, dude, if the Bills don't win it this year, they might not ever get a Super Bowl. And 2 years ago in 2023, when the Ravens lost to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, at the time, I wasn't really as upset about it, which I've said the story before. But it is kind of looking like if the Ravens do not get a Super Bowl by the year 2028, because there's 13 days left in 2025, Lamar might not ever get one with the Baltimore Ravens. But, hey, there's still plenty of time, and, hey, you never know what happens any given Sunday. And also, for those of you who play fantasy football, let me know how your first week of the fantasy football playoffs had went. In one of my leagues, I didn't make it. I was trash. And then in the league that I made it in, the playoffs just start tonight for this league. And long story short, DK Metcalf did just enough to get me into the playoffs against Miami. If he did not score that touchdown, I would have lost. So, moving on to Thursday night's action, Rams versus Seattle. This is a huge game because the NFC West, they're both tied at, I want to say 10-3, 10-4, somewhere around that mark. And this has implications for two reasons. Number one, whoever wins this game will likely win the division. And number two, whoever wins this game will have the number one seed at this point in time, which I think both of those are huge. And I know Bears fans are going to be kind of watching this one a little closely because, because you're the second seed right now because the Packers lost last week. So you're going to be watching this a little closely. But last time these teams met up, Sam Darnold, he threw 4 interceptions. He was seeing ghosts. The Rams just have his number for whatever reason, stretching back to that playoff matchup when he was on the Vikings. I think the key for this game is Seattle has to run the football. They have to get the ground game going early because if they don't, I believe the Rams could have a similar sort of thing, like similar sort of, thing defensively. And so the other thing is Devontae Adams, he might not play in this game tonight. At the time of this recording, it's still a little uncertain. There's still some uncertainty about it. But if he does not play, I think the Seattle defense, they are going to be focused on Puka Nacua. And I would not be surprised if Puka Nacua is doubled if Devontae Adams does not play. And so the Seattle, they might have the mentality is like, look, you might have some of your other receivers, your tight ends, open like one-on-one. But we would much rather Matt Stafford throw it to these guys than throw it to Puka Nacua. And they might just attempt to live with that. And the Rams, they might double Jackson Smith and Jigba. They might. I'm not sure. But I'm going to take Seattle to get this win 30-27. I feel like if this is going to be a Thursday night football game, I feel like it's going to be a little weird. I don't know. Like last week, we got the weirdness with, the Falcons actually beating the Bucs with Kyle Pitts putting up 40. But I feel like we're in for another kind of weird Thursday night football. Moving on to the Eagles versus the Commanders. Yeah, give me the Eagles to win this game, 31-14. Yes, the Eagles, they got, sort of back on track against the Raiders, and I think another good test for them to fully say that they're back. Even though the Commanders are out of the playoff race, this is still a division rival. So I think, having another good showing on the offensive end would be, important. And yeah, other things that, I had thought of, like looking at like the stats, even though that the Eagles offense had been disappointing this season, Saquon Barkley, statistics wise, I believe he can break over, like the 1,000-yard mark this weekend, and he's on pace for 1,100 yards. Devontae Smith and AJ Brown are on pace for 1,000 yards, which the 1,000-yard threshold, it's not exactly what it was 15 years, 20 years ago, but in my mind, it's still an important thing. And also Dallas Goedert, he's got a bunch of touchdowns. So like, even though that I feel like their offense has not been doing what it should, because I feel like at least AJ Brown should have been well over that 1,000-yard mark. But I'm going to give them the props because in a down year, they're still at least having a respectable season with, regard to the stats. Commanders, I don't really got much to say about them. I mean, they did win last week. They snapped, I think, an 8-game losing streak. But yeah, they're just ready for the offseason. Packers versus Bears. This is huge. This is huge because, if you're the Bears and you're able to win this game, this kind of helps you get your number 1 seed. But if you're the Packers, since you lost to the Eagles, I don't really think you'll be cemented as like the number 2 seed. Like by that I mean like you'll be there for sure. But the Bears will have a chance for the number 1 seed depending on how this weekend's slate of games goes. And so I think last time that these two teams played, I think the Bears in the second half, they were playing better football. It's just that the Bears, they've got to put together 4 quarters to beat the Packers. They have to put 4 quarters. They can't just play well in the second half because I don't think the Bears are going to beat the Packers if they don't put together, a full game. Now, here's the thing. There's a huge difference for the Bears this time than it was last time. The Packers just had a bunch of injuries. Micah Parsons, done for the season. I believe the Packers' top 2 options are currently injured. And that alone is why I'm going to give the Bears the nod here. I think they're going to win this game 24-20. I believe the Bears' offensive line, specifically, I can't remember his name right now, and I apologize. But in the last 4 weeks, the Bears, and not even just the past 4 weeks, this season, the Bears have played some really good pass rushers. They've played the Myles Garrett. They played the Micah Parsons. They played the TJ Watt. They played Max Crosby. And I want to say it's their right tackle. And I believe he's a rookie. I think he's number 79. But in all 4 of those games, he's only had 1 penalty against those 4 guys. And you would think that a great pass rusher like the 4 I just named, they're probably going to draw a crap ton of holding calls. And he's only that's a good sign. I get it. It's possible he could have let up a bunch of sacks, but like the Bears offensive line, Caleb Williams has been well protected this season. So I think that, the Bears still need, like offensive line, they still need to, play their A game. But I'm going to take the Bears to win this one. And I think that they need to have an emphasis on starting quicker because I think if this game is close or if the Packers have the lead at halftime, and I understand that the Bears are a second half team, I don't think it's to the Bears' benefit of, basically beating the Packers if this game is like, let's just say, if it's 10-7, the Packers are leading. I don't think it's to the Bears' benefit, even if the Bears are a second half team, because all it takes is just one play for the Packers in a close game for them to, flip the momentum completely. But I will take the Bears to win 24-20. Moving on to the Chargers versus the Cowboys. The Cowboys pretty much don't really have any more room for error. I think the only way that they end up making the playoffs is if they win out and the Eagles just have a collapse. But I don't think they're going to necessarily do. I don't think either or is going to happen. And yeah, I think the Cowboys have kind of a similar problem to the Bengals, so to speak, not as drastic. I think if the Cowboys start the season a little bit better, then you'll have a little bit more hope this time of year. And, they had been playing better since the trade deadline, getting, Quinnen Williams, getting Logan Wilson. They have been playing better, but I think they need to, play well from week one onward. Chargers, they're doing their thing. I don't really have too much to say about them. They did just get out of a slugfest against the Chiefs, and I think that they're a team that if they are able to emphasize running the football, they could be a scary team to watch because I don't really think anybody's gonna want to play a team that's gonna run the football consistently. Give me the Chargers to win this one, 20-14. I see this being an awkward kind of defensive game. I don't see Justin Herbert really doing anything crazy. I think he's going to not lose you the football game. And I think Dak Prescott, there's a TikToker, he has his own podcast, and I see his clips through TikTok. And he's an Eagles fan. And basically, he kind of said it best. And sorry, I can't think of the name of his podcast. Basically what he said was, oh, I remember the name, Real Talk with MJ. That's his podcast. So credit to him for, this idea I'm about to say, because he's the one who said it. When the Cowboys have expectations, they don't necessarily rise to meet those expectations. But when they're playing with house money, they ball out, which he didn't exactly say the house money part, but basically what he had said was when they don't have those expectations, they're going to look amazing. That's basically what he was trying to say, and he made a very good point. So, yeah, the Real Talk with MJ, that's the guy who said that. Yeah, he's an Eagles fan. So, yeah, I think I think that this weekend might be the end of the Cowboys season. I think the Chargers are going to play better football, obviously, to get the win. Moving on to the Vikings versus the Giants. So, this game, both these teams are already eliminated from the playoffs, and I don't really have much to say. I think I'm more interested to see if JJ McCarthy puts together a, good stretch of football games, just because this team has basically been just a quarterback away from competing for the playoffs. Because last year they had things on their side. I get it. They had that bad playoff loss against the Rams. Sam Darnold did not play well, but this team's roster wise is just a quarterback away, and in my opinion. And I don't know if JJ McCarthy is that guy. I don't know if he really will be that guy, but only time will tell. I think the Vikings are going to get this win 21-14. Moving on to the Bengals versus Miami. Yeah, both of these teams, are eliminated. My Ravens, got the big win last week. I was surprised that they kept the Bengals out of the end zone. I really was. But I think the bigger story for this game is Miami because Tua has been benched. And, there have been all the talks about basically if they decide to move on from him, yeah, that's like $99 million in dead cap if the Dolphins decide to cut him, which I think the previous record is Russell Wilson when he got cut from the Broncos. There was $85 million in dead cap. But the thing is, the Broncos were able to kind of turn around relatively quickly last season, making the playoffs with Bo Nix. And this season, they're the current number one seed in football. So I would say cutting Russell Wilson, despite all that money, was a good decision. Now, I would think that Russell Wilson was more deserving of his contract than Tua is, because outside of really one season, Tua hasn't really played at an elite level, and Russell Wilson has had some elite years in Seattle. His first year in Denver was bleh, but his second year wasn't that bad. So, like stats wise, like don't get me, I get it. Like in Denver, he didn't play like I don't remember what his contract was off the top of my head, but he didn't play like, his contract, like he didn't play as somebody worthy of that contract, is what I'm trying to say. I'm fumbling over my words and I apologize about that. So Quinn Ewers, the Texan, I said it right the first time. The Texas quarterback, sorry, I feel like I just said a tongue twister. But Quinn Ewers will be getting the start this weekend. And even though that the Bengals defense is not amazing, I do think that they're going to make, the Dolphins' lives not really fun. I would not be surprised if they stacked the box and basically said, look, Quinn Ewers, we're not a playoff team. You're not a playoff team. If you want to beat us, you're going to have to throw for a crazy amount of yards in your first start. Which, I mean, hey, it could be done. You never know. Because, I mean, they've got the speed in Jalen Waddle and, Devon Achane to do it. But we will see. But I'm going to take the Bengals to win 28-10. I feel like the pressure for the Bengals is just going to be completely lifted because now they're pretty much playing for pride or a draft pick. And so they're going to overperform when in reality their fans probably want them to play bad for a better draft pick. Give me the Bengals to win 28-10. The Bucs versus the Panthers. This is a huge game in the NFC South as both teams control their own destiny. By that I mean, these teams have to play basically twice in the final couple of weeks. And even if you lose, this week matchup on Sunday, your season's not over because winning that second matchup is more, like basically whoever loses this game, they have to win out the rest of the season to win their division. And, at the start of this year, myself included, I kind of would have thought that this is the Bucs division. But now the Panthers, they're playing some good football. By that, I mean, I don't think anybody expected their division to be this close this year. I don't think anyone has. And I think the Panthers have been playing better football. I'm going to take the Panthers to win this one in a close one, 27-26. I think that, the Panthers, they're playing better all across the board. And I think that, after the Bucs fast start, they kind of have just fallen off, Baker Mayfield included. And yes, I did think that he was playing at an MVP level earlier this season, but he is basically what Baker Mayfield was playing like week 1 through like 6 versus weeks like 7 to basically today, going on week 16. Two different quarterbacks, in my opinion. Two different quarterbacks. That is why I think the Panthers are going to get the win. Moving on to the Jets versus the Saints. I feel like unless you're a fan of these teams, you're not going to really watch this game. But the Saints did beat the Panthers last week when I definitely did not expect them to. And, I kind of wonder what they're going to do with their draft position. By that, I mean, are they going to give, their quarterback Tyler Shuck, I believe? I always ask that question because I feel like I hear people say it differently every time. But are they going to give him a full offseason? I'm not sure. But it would be interesting to see if they did. I think they need a veteran quarter presence in that, on that team. I think, like Tyler Shuck can, if he had room to learn, I feel like it would help him out a lot. And the Jets, their defense has been historically bad this season. They've only forced 2 turnovers all season. That is on pace to be basically like to breaking a record you don't want to break. And I hope Aaron Glenn does not get fired I hope he's not a one and done coach because I think that he's a good coach. I think he just kind of has a bad roster. But I'm going to take the Saints to win this one 17-14. Moving on to the Bills versus the Browns. I've been seeing a lot of things with the Browns that Deshaun Watson, he might play in this game or that next season Deshaun Watson might be the guy, even if Shedeur Sanders shows that hey, this is my team, type of stuff. But assuming that it's Shedeur Sanders who plays this game, I'm very curious. I think that this is a game that the Bills are going to win kind of handedly, but I wonder if the Browns are, because this is a type of game that, if the Bills lose, this could hurt their season a lot. So if I was the Browns, that would be my motivation. Like if I'm a player on that team, but the Myles Garrett, he's going for the sack record, and that could be enough to wreck the game for the Bills. But I think overall, I don't think the Browns are going to be able to put up, enough points to keep up with the Bills for like the entire game. Give me the Bills to win 31-21. And yes, what I'm saying is a close game, but it's going to be one of those games where I would not be surprised if there's a garbage time touchdown for the Browns. Moving on to the Chiefs versus Titans. Yeah, well, it's been since 2014 since they have been, eliminated from the playoffs. The NFL world looked drastically different. And not even just the NFL world, the just world in itself has looked drastically different since then. I would not have thought that, Patrick Mahomes would, first off, he's injured, but basically, I would never have thought that the Chiefs would have been playing a non-meaningful football game at this time of year. But, I still trust the Chiefs roster more so than the Titans. I just think, if anything, that this game could be a closer game because Gardner Minshew, I imagine, is going to be their starting quarterback for the last couple of games of the year. And Gardner Minshew might give you one or two, interceptions. He might give you one or two. He might. Or he might just, just play lights out. I'm going to take the Chiefs to win a close one, something that they have not really done a lot this season. I think they were 1-7 in close games this year. Give me the Chiefs to win this 23-20. Moving on to the Jags versus the Broncos. This could be game of the week type potential because both of these teams are riding high right now. Trevor Lawrence had an amazing game last week against the Jets. Now, I understand people are going to say, oh, Jaren, he had an amazing game against the Jets. It is what it is. The Broncos, they played well against the Packers last week to get the win, but I still have questions about the Broncos offense. I'm not really I haven't seen enough from them to, keep putting together, strong, consistent performances. And the Jags, they've got a talented team all around. So I feel like they can, at least keep the game interesting. And I believe the Jags are going to steal this one on the road, 31-28. I think they're going to make that race for the number one seed even more interesting. Moving on to the Falcons versus the Cardinals. I don't have much to say about either of these teams. I think that for the Falcons right now, if they were smart, you would probably try to do your best to keep winning out to avoid giving the Rams an even higher draft pick. Because, don't get me wrong, the fact that they're still probably going to be picking within the top 15 is going to be insane. But for the Cardinals, there was something I saw basically with Trey McBride's stats, what they would look like if Jacoby Brissett was his quarterback for an entire year. And basically, from a season standpoint, he would have the greatest season a tight end ever had. He'd have 140 catches, I think. He would have 1,400 yards. He'd have 18 touchdowns, which that's just insane. But I'm going to take the Falcons to win another kind of close game, 24-21. Moving on to the Raiders versus the Texans. We have the best defense in the NFL in the Texans versus the worst offense in the NFL against the Raiders. I don't think I need to say any more. Give me the Texans to win this game, 31-7. I think that this team will be a playoff team, and I think that they will have a chance to, play for, their division championship. But by the end of the season, give me them to win 31-7. Moving on to the Steelers versus Lions. A lot of Ravens fans, such as myself, will be tuning into this game because if the Lions win this game, it'll help, the Ravens. And, there's been this whole thing this season, which earlier in the season I was unaware of. The Lions have not lost back-to-back games since 2021. And they lost last week against the Rams, which, that also dictates that, hey, they're not going to lose back-to-back. And another weird thing, I think it's been since week 10. Basically, Jahmyr Gibbs, he would have a game with 0 touchdowns. Then the following week, he'd have 3. Then he'd go back to 0, and then 3. And so I believe last week against the Rams, I'll double check that right now just to be certain. I believe he did not score a touchdown last week, which if that weird trend stays true, yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs, he did not score a touchdown last week. He had 13 carries for 38 yards. It was David Montgomery who scored the touchdown with 32 yards and a touchdown. But yeah, it's an interesting, matchup because the Steelers, they've been playing better football. I feel like their defense has been, much improved. And I think that, basically they're a veteran group that they're going to play sound football for the most part. But I think where the Lions could, get out to an early lead and just make the Steelers' life even tougher is if Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery have themselves a day. I don't think the Steelers are going to be able to stop Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, but I think Aaron Rodgers himself will probably have his best game of the season. Give me the Lions to win this one 35-30. Now, only got 2 games left. Let me know in the comments if any of my predictions have shocked you. And so, really, we just have the Sunday Night Football game and Monday night, which the Sunday night game was flexed. It was the Patriots versus the Ravens in Baltimore. The Patriots did just blow a 21-0 lead against the Bills. And right now, I feel like I will call myself out for this. Earlier in the season, I was not on the Patriots, like bandwagon, like hype train. And they're one of the best teams in the AFC right now. They're going to be a well-coached team. Mike Vrabel does know the Baltimore Ravens, specifically Lamar Jackson, very well due to the battles that the Ravens and Titans have had over the years. So that this game is going to be very interesting. I think the key to this game is going to be the defense yet again. I think if the Ravens can, just slow down, the Patriots offense, I think that's going to be to the Ravens' strength. I think that, if you control the time of possession in this game, Drake May might throw a risky pass or two, which, he hasn't really done a lot this season, but I think, the Ravens defense needs to be on point. I think, Derrick Henry, he needs to have himself a big game. And I think Lamar Jackson, which last week he played, the stat sheets will not show it because he only had about 150 yards, but he played, he did what he needed to do. I'm going to take the Ravens to win this one 27-20 because this season is kind of just reminding me of one of the years with Joe Flacco as the quarterback where they need to basically win out to make the playoffs and, they make a run. Like in 2014 example, I didn't really trust the Ravens to make a run like they did, which, they got to the divisional round in that year, which I didn't think they were going to do. I kind of get the feeling that this is going to be like a similar kind of vibe where, they're going to, go on a run and week 18 against the Pittsburgh Steelers is going to be very interesting. So give me the Ravens to win this one 27-20. I think if Drake May and the Patriots start out fast, it might be a long night for Baltimore. It might be a long night. And the final game of the week is the 49ers versus the Colts. Yes, the Colts almost won with a 44-year-old Phillip Rivers, which when I learned about like how the NFL insurance works a little bit, and like it does technically it was a smart move for him to come out of retirement to basically have more years of NFL insurance, for your family. But I don't know, man. He didn't look like god awful, but he didn't really look amazing. He does not really look like he's in NFL shape, in my opinion. But he did throw a touchdown pass last week. Let me give him some respect. And then, the 49ers, they pretty much did what they needed to do against, the Titans last week. I think Christian McCaffrey is going to have another great game. I think that this is a more important game for the Colts, considering that how they started versus where they are now. And, there's only 2 teams left in the hunt for the AFC, and that's the Ravens and the Colts. I think that this game is bigger for the Colts than it is the 49ers. But I think the 49ers defense is going to cause the Colts offense some problems this week. And I don't think the Colts defense is going to be able to stop Christian McCaffrey. Give me the 49ers to win this game 33-21. That is all I have for the I Am Passionate podcast. I'm your host, Jaren Smith, and I'll see you all next time.